U4 error codes, and why do they suck? What am I talking about? On VRV systems, specifically Daikin, there's an error code. That error code is U4. It's probably something we've all seen at some point in our career, whether you turn the unit on for the first time, someone accidentally turns the unit off for the first time, or you have communication wiring issues. You see, U4 is such a horrible code, to put it nicely, that it could mean a number of things. And so I had someone who I know, a good friend of mine that I've got to know over the years, troubleshooting VRV for the very first time, asking me about U4 error codes. When that phone conversation with him and his team, I came to find out that this error code is really complex, but it doesn't have to be. And so today I'm going to break down how you troubleshoot a U4 and how to diagnose problems within the system using my children's whiteboard. That's right, because it's not that complex. You see, with a U4 error code, you have what we call a subcode. On VRV3, you won't see this part of the error code. You'll only see the U4 on the indoor unit or the outdoor unit. See, it wasn't until VRV4 and higher series that we got these last designations. Now, I'm not saying that the last designations here of 01 or 02 or whatever flavor that they come in with the unit that you're working on is going to help you pinpoint the exact issue. I'm just showing you what the full length of the error code looks like with all 4 digits. Now, if we erase this, what is a U4 error code? U4 error code is a communication fault, which means that on a VRV system, you have one outdoor unit and you have multiple indoor units in the communication loop. U4 means that it's not talking to the systems inside. Looks something like this, right? You've got your outdoor unit, goes to your indoor unit, then your other indoor unit, then your last indoor unit. U4 means that somewhere on this board, the system is messed up. So you're like, well, that can't be that hard to troubleshoot, right? And that's where you'd be wrong. With a U4 error code, it could be a number of things. It could be this, a disconnection between the outdoor unit and the indoor systems. A U4 error code could be this, a disconnection between indoor unit to indoor unit. It could be the fact that this unit has no power on the system and there is no break in the communication wire. It could also mean that this unit has no power, or the board on this outdoor unit is also dead. You see, there's a wide number of issues that it could be. And you're saying, okay, well, Roman, you're just talking me out of why I don't service VRV equipment in the first place. And that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to say, because it can be such a wide number of things, there's a process to follow to troubleshoot U4 error codes. If it's a brand new installation, we're looking at a few things. We're looking at wiring within the system. We're looking at how the system is installed, where it's sitting, what has power, what doesn't have power. If someone turns something off, where the breaker's located. So let's talk about the systematic approach to troubleshooting U4s. If you have a U4, where is the U4 at? If the U4 error code is at the outdoor unit, then we obviously know the outdoor unit has power because we see a display that's telling us U4. If the error code is inside, then we're asking the question, well, does the outdoor unit have power? The biggest explanation for most U4s is someone turns something off. That's right, when you have a system like VRV, everything gets auto-addressed. What does that mean, auto-address? Well, with an auto-address system, you're going to find that when you turn the power on for the first time, in the communication circuit that looks like this, everybody gets an address. The outdoor unit gets an address. Hey, you're 01. You're 02, 03, 27, because machines don't make sense when it auto-addresses. You're 77, and you're 128. Why? Because of reasons unknown. This is the address system that it creates on the first time it powers up. Well, once it does this specific addressing sequence in the system, what happens is that it sends commands. It says 7 signals to 02, 7 to 03, 7 to 27, 7 to 128. And it looks for responses back down the network to the outdoor unit. When it sees these respond commands after it sends 7 different commands of the same thing, either what's your temperature, or hey, turn on, or hey, what are you doing? When it sees those return signals, it says, hey, we're properly communicating. If it doesn't see return signals back, or it gets back an irregular command from the indoor unit, it says, hey, what's going on downstream? If it gets 0 of the responses back that it sends to the indoor units, it generates a U4 error code communication fault. Now, again, that can come back to a number of things. It could be a lack of power. It could be a break in the communication wire. It could be things that are hooked up in the network that aren't supposed to be, like float switches or thermostats on the F1, F2 in and outs, or other third-party devices. People get really crazy with this stuff, so don't overthink it. Well, now that we know what an auto address is and what the system is doing, this is exactly what happens. You see 128 drops off, and now it only sees these 4 indoor units. And so when it no longer sees this one, after about 15 to 20 minutes, the outdoor unit then says, hey, everybody stop, U4, the entire system shuts down. So what are we trying to determine here? So we want to make sure that the outdoor unit has power. We want to make sure all the indoor units have power. Now you're saying I have to go through every single disconnect to make sure that everything has power. Well, no, the first step, in my opinion, would be to go to the outdoor unit, obviously verify the error code is still a U4 at the outdoor unit, that it's not masking the error code. And when we say masking error codes, it means that the indoor units are showing a U4, but the outdoor unit is showing an E2, right? And under that E2, maybe there is an E4, right? Or maybe it blew a fuse and now it's not communicating correctly. These are all things that we have to check, make sure that the error codes match up. Once we've done that and we verify there's power here, now we can start troubleshooting the communication network to see what's happened. Because we can't see that all from one place. You can either hook up your service tool and see how many indoor units you have. But again, if you have a communication fault like U4, hooking up Service Checker or a service device is almost a waste of time. Because we know that if the communication doesn't work because it says it doesn't work, hooking up to it and trying to look at it with a service tool doesn't mean it's going to fix the problem. It just means that it's not going to populate. And you're going to spend a ton of time hooking up a service tool that isn't going to fix the issue. The issue is it can't see somebody, right? It can't see somebody that it once saw, or it's not communicating the way it needs to. So what do we do then? We can count outdoor units. But remember, when we do the auto address on this system, the system itself is taking a snapshot, a photo of how many indoor units it has. And so if you go in and you say, well, Roman, it's just as easy as actually typing in a few, setting modes here and counting how many indoor units there are. Well, you forget that the count of the indoor units is what was taken during the auto address sequence. And so it's going to say that it has 5 indoor units. And you're going to say, well, what the hell's the problem then? You see 5 indoor units. There is 5 indoor units. Let's go. And that's not a correct solution. That's not even accurate at this point. Because if you did a forced recount, which is where you hold the return button for 5 seconds, right, or do a hard reset where you turn the unit off, turn the unit back on, and hold the reset button for 60 seconds, it's going to do an auto address. And if it sees nobody, it's going to come back with a big old 0 of how many indoor units it sees. And so that's not a correct troubleshooting procedure for something like this. Looking at how many indoor units are connected is a snapshot of what it once saw, which is a good thing if you're trying to determine how many indoor units are connected to a mystery system. But it's not a good thing if you're trying to use that to prove communication. We know it's not communicating. That's why it has a U4. So let's move on. So you haven't done the service tools, and maybe you did the count, but you're not going to hang your hat on it as accurate. You people get frustrated with this part because they assume what it sees is accurate to what's happening right now. Again, just a snapshot. So now the approach here is measuring output voltage. When I say measuring output voltage, the A1P board, which I'm sure I have one here somewhere in my office, I've got probably 17 of them at all times, it tells you that on the F1, F2, in and out on that board, on that A1P board, should be 16.5 volts DC. Now that's in a perfect world with nothing connected. Really, when you see loaded communication with 28 indoor units or 32 indoor units, you're getting voltage closer to 15.4, 15.2 volts DC, depending upon the age of the system. You're never going to see that 16.5 perfect voltage. If you see that perfect voltage, it sees nobody on the network. And that is also another red flag in communication problems like this. So we're measuring voltage at the outdoor unit. If you don't have 16.5 volts DC at the outdoor unit, then the next step is to remove the communication wires from the outdoor unit. We want to disconnect this circuit here and say, okay, hey, I get it. The indoor units are the problem. You're good to run. Show me that you're good to run. Show me the money here. So you disconnect the wires. Maybe you do a hard restart because the voltage doesn't come back right away. Hold down the reset button. Now I'm measuring 16.5 volts DC. Now, if you've read my A1P board troubleshooting guide, you'll know that when you reset a unit on power cycle, especially when you hold the reset or cause it to auto address, that the DC voltage will turn on and off randomly, trying to count and communicate with indoor units. So it's going to be on, off, on, off. Now that's not a bad board. That just means that you reset the unit and now you have to wait for it to initialize to tell you you have a U4 to then stabilize and send the 16.5 volts DC you're looking for stabilized. So it is kind of a time waster in my opinion. Does the voltage come back? Yes, the voltage does come back when I disconnect the wire. Well, then that means that my outdoor unit is good. The problem is is the indoor units. Somewhere in the chain is causing it to crash. So where do I go next? I verify that I've got my voltage here. The board isn't fried. The unit isn't toast. Please don't replace it. Number one, replace component. Let's go to the first indoor unit and let's disconnect the network and let's do one-to-one. What happens when I do one-to-one? Now, when I'm going to this mode specifically, this is the problem that a lot of people do, and it usually causes a lot of issues. They think, well, if I hook up one unit, now I have to reset the outdoor unit. I have to put it back into an auto address mode, and then I have to wait the 20 minutes for it to generate another error code to see if it communicates. And then I have to go and see how many units it counted. Go ahead and skip all those steps and save yourself a good hour of walking back and forth between the roof and the unit to just pull your hair out to realize that this error code makes you want to quit your job and move to another country. Instead, you're going to put this into setting mode 221. And you're going to say, wait a minute, that's refrigerant recovery mode. And that's the point. You see, refrigerant recovery mode is a setting that causes the outdoor unit to send a signal to the indoor units on repeat, nonstop, saying open valves, lock thermostat. Open valves, lock thermostat. It is on repeat over and over and over and over again. And so we use this to our advantage, knowing what this setting does to know that this is going to be sending data packets constantly to the first indoor unit. If this indoor unit sees this outdoor unit, what does it do? Well, it has a override force command to open expansion valves and lock thermostat and turn the green light on the LED light on the controller. So with using setting mode 221, I can then say, well, it's in setting mode 221. I know the wire is connected from front to back here. I've put it into force communication mode right here, refrigerant recovery mode, and now I'm waiting to see what happens. Well, if nothing happens within the first 4 to 5 minutes, it's usually because the indoor unit has noticed that nobody's on the network and it can't see anybody or any signals, so it stops looking. So what you have to do is you have to power cycle the indoor unit, turn it off, turn it back on again while it's in 221 to reestablish communication. Now, if this indoor unit starts to see the data packets coming down the stream to the first indoor unit, it will lock the thermostat out within 5 minutes. If you want to speed that process up, you can actually turn the thermostat on after the power cycle to tell it to actively run. It's going to start looking for orders on the network to see what it needs to do. If this unit locks out in 221 and the thermostat goes blank and the green light turns on, then you know that the wire from here to here is good. Now we need to go to the rest of the network. Now you can go and start doing each one individually, but that would also be a waste of time. Instead, what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to go to the middle of the chain and break it there. So if this is the middle of the chain, and I've got an odd number of units here and I'm wanting to get this call done quickly, I'm going to break it here. I'm going to follow the same process of power cycling this unit and this unit, because this one's already in 221 and communicating, to get it to communicate in the same sequence. And if I can get that, I keep following this process until the unit that I add back to the network, either one, I'm going to find an indoor unit with no power, or two, I'm going to add it back to the network and the entire network is going to crash. You're going to find that all of these go back into U4 when I add this unit number 17. When I come back here and I do the same test, oh, the U4 comes back, everything crashes, I lose my 16.5 volts DC. And that means that 17 is the problem. I can even go further, is to just take the wires off, wire nut them together, and put 128 back in the series. Does this work? Because if this works, then I know 100% that 17's got a bad A1P board, or there's something wrong with the communication within that system itself, and I can troubleshoot that alone while I get the rest of the system back up and running. This is the process for troubleshooting this network. If I find that the indoor unit to outdoor unit does not go into setting mode 221, there's another mode that you can use too. You can use force fan on mode, setting mode 2.5, to force all the indoor units that sees the outdoor unit to run their fans in a high fan speed. So the air will start flowing within the building. You find the unit that doesn't have the fan running, and that is your problem child that's not communicating, either has the power off, is disconnected, wires have been cut, someone landed a float switch breaking the comm wires and the unit's full of water, or the drain line's full of water. Trust me, I've seen just about everything. With all these things being in mind here, it's important to understand the 221 refrigerant recovery mode rule, and understanding that as you add indoor units back to the network, you don't have to go back outside to reset it a million trillion times to get all these things to communicate inside. Now, if you find that there's a disconnection between the indoor units, if you find that isolating an indoor unit's the problem, don't forget to go back to the basics of disconnecting the wire at both sides and ohming the wire out between the two. Now, understanding your D3 communication network, you'll know that anything below 540 ohms on F1 and F2 will cause the network to crash. Actually, there's little tiny relays on the A1P board that will protect the transformer that generates the 16.5 volts DC on the outdoor unit, and it'll disconnect the F1, F2 from the system, and you'll lose voltage to keep the transformer from shorting out or the board from shorting out. And so if you find that there's 540 ohms between F1 and F2 anywhere in the network on the wire itself, then the outdoor unit will disconnect communication automatically to protect the network and protect the transformers on the communication side of the board. So understanding that if I'm disconnecting wires on both sides and I'm ohming them out looking for no continuity, no connection, and I have continuity, or I have resistance, which is what I'd rather you check, resistance on the wire itself, it's not supposed to be there. You'll find that certain scenarios where random U4 error codes is capacitance that builds up because of the wires touching each other, because of shielded wire in between. These are all things that we can check as technicians. Just know that you don't need to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Understand how this works. Understand how the communication network is set up. Understand the settings that you have at your disposal to troubleshoot difficult error codes like this. Because we know it can be a slew of things. You have to follow a process of understanding what steps do I take. And the process for that is always trying to get the outdoor unit to communicate to the very first indoor unit from the get-go. If you can prove communication, then you know that you're not troubleshooting an A1P board that it will never communicate. There's nothing worse than trying to get a board to do something that you can't actually visually see, right, without an oscilloscope. The data points that are being sent to the indoor unit and back received to the outdoor unit. Now that is a 17-minute from front to back how I troubleshoot U4 error codes in the field. If you're not familiar with VRV and you're not familiar with VRF as a whole, this is one of those videos that you follow in the field to find the problem. Again, U4s are grueling because, again, it's a detailed, thorough process that you have to follow to eliminate communication wires, wire nuts within the system, safety devices breaking the communication in the system, voltage problems with the power, both indoor and outdoor, high voltage wires sharing the same raceway and conduit of the actual communication wires, shields improperly grounded, wire length exceeding the total length of those 3,000 feet because of all the accessories and the fact that they wanted to take it 6 buildings over to land the centralized controller. All the way to faulty indoor control boards, faulty outdoor control boards, faulty BRC controllers. You can see here I'm running out of fingers. Well, I've ran out of fingers. There are so many things that cause communication issues that you have to work on a systematic process like I talked about. Make your own process. Share that process with me. I would love to know what you find successful in the field. This is what I follow, how I do it to make the job successful. Because at the end of the day, if you don't check boxes in a certain order, you're going to be chasing your tail thinking that something that you did had a side effect to something that has nothing to do with that, right? Happy hunting on those U4s. Keep learning. See you guys on the next one.